Living free together, folks. Welcome to another session of our Family Life Strategies library. It's called Are You a Builder or a Destroyer? The choice is yours, particularly if you're mindful about watching yourself as you make the choices that inform your life. Human beings are social critters by nature. We raise our children in social units. We seek partners with whom we can build a family. We come together in neighborhoods or communities for collaboration that's designed to serve the common good. We seek friendships with like-minded people. Some individuals are less social than others, but the bottom line is we are fundamentally social beings. Again, individuals vary on every dimension available, and for the purpose of this conversation, I'll ask you not to search for the example of somebody who doesn't fit, who's really a loner, but agree that on the whole, we're not designed psychologically to live in isolation. During this time of living through a global pandemic, we have disrupted many of our comfortable social patterns. People feel isolated. Many are struggling with depression. People feel anxious and uncertain. Lots of things that we took for granted are up in the air right now. We don't know when normal is going to return. We often don't know how to meet the needs that we were meeting quite well before the isolation, the limited movement, the limited access to other people disrupted those patterns. The effects of feeling anxious and uncertain are coming in part from our stressed social interactions. So what, you might say? Well, what I want to discuss here is the fact that we're wired to function in relation to other people. Prolonged solitary confinement damages a person's mental health. Boredom is a noxious state. Shunning is a brutal form of punishment, often found in self-contained groups. Because of the basic social nature of human beings, how we see ourselves reflected in the ways other people regard us or treat us is critical. Because we are interdependent on each other, you have the potential to affect how I feel about myself, and my treatment of you can affect how you feel about you. There are a lot of factors that can determine how much power we give each other in this regard. However, whether it's a lot or a little, this effect exists. When we look at children, this process is most clearly seen. Human beings start life thinking that they are the center of the universe. Everything revolves around them, their wants, their needs, their perceptions. At the same time, the child is vulnerable to the reactions of his or her caregivers as they interact with the child. We all read the messages in how we're treated, and patterns of treatment can strongly influence how we see ourselves. Are we valued by our caregivers, by our parents? Or are we treated like a burden, a bother, an interruption? Are we engaged and talked to and related to and sought after? Or do we treat our children in such a way that if they're being quiet, let's leave them alone, let's not disturb them, let's ignore them until they get fussy? And in those ways wind up rewarding misbehavior while ignoring the kind of collaborative or cooperative play we wish them to engage in. Another caveat, people are robust and resilient, so what I'm talking about is the pattern of treatment that a person experiences over time. Fundamentally, we're receiving feedback about our worth as a person. First, from our primary caregivers, but then it extends to our intimates, then authority figures, and even peers. There's a lot of input. Much of it is unspoken and so open to interpretation. A child builds assessment of his or her worth, of how she or he needs to navigate through the world by experiencing the reactions of other people to him or her. Is he well regarded and cared for, or is he treated like a burden and a pain in the butt? Is the child's opinion respected and valued, or are they ignored, diminished, or worse, are they ridiculed? Does the child receive coaching, guidance, teaching, or are they primarily given the message that they are dumb or stupid? I could go on, but I think you get the point. Most of us have been children who have heard those messages ourselves. Many of us still carry damage from those words, from those attitudes. The power of parents and close adults can't be overstated when it comes to laying the foundations of a child's self-esteem. The impact of these people has a lasting mark, whether it comes from an accurate assessment or it's based on biased views. Kid may be doing nothing out of the ordinary, but if mom is frustrated and tired and depressed and worried, she may not have the patience or the energy to see the joy in that child's behavior or to find joy in engaging with that child. Not that the child is doing anything wrong, but that mom is wiped out. That's not something a child has empathy for. He or she doesn't figure, oh, mom's really wiped out, I understand. No, the child senses the rejection, the rebuff, and wonder what's wrong with them, because they see the parents as self-contained, all-powerful, all-knowing, always right, always in charge, always in control. Kids see their parents as all-powerful, at least until they become adolescents. Then it all changes, but for equally crazy reasons. As a child grows, he or she receives feedback and treatment from a growing circle of people with a broader range of values. Child could also have resulting interactions with their environment, from teachers, from neighbors, from coaches, from a variety of people can give you feedback as to your own value, strengthen or diminish your own sense of worth. Depending on the overall effects of these experiences, people have various appetites for validating feedback from others, or are strong enough in their beliefs in themselves that they are pretty much impervious to the feedback of others. I tell parents of girls, they can make their daughters feel valuable, precious, important, worthy, good, and appealing in their own right, by their own nature. If they give those feelings, if they help nurture those feelings in the child, she goes out into the world stronger and prepared to deal with the actions, the manipulations of other people. If they don't help nurture those feelings in their daughter, she's very likely to seek it out in the feedback of a 16-year-old boy or in a pack of adolescent girls. We all know the problems that comes with finding your validation in those places. So be aware that how you treat the people in your life, whether it's your spouse, whether it's a business partner, a collaborator, whether it's a student, a mentee, the way you handle them are constantly giving messages about their value, their worth, their own self-esteem. In terms of managing your impact on people that you care about, being aware of your impact versus your intentions is critical for the overall quality of your relationships. Doesn't matter what you intend, as much as what matters is the impact you have on others by the way you treat them, by the way you react to them. Don't just react and treat people out of reflex or instinct. Being mindful and deliberate in how you treat the people in your care will make a substantial difference. Whether that's your mate, who feels better about himself or herself being reflected in your gaze, or whether it's your child feeling confident and competent given the guidance and responses that you provide, it makes a big difference. And that means a deliberate effort to manage the impact that you have on other people. You can be a builder of confidence, of self-esteem, of self-worth. You can also act in ways that diminish or undermine the self-confidence of other people. What's your goal? What's your duty? Do you validate or undermine people in your life? Are you aware of the impact that you actually have on others? If you think so, then I want you to understand your strategy. Do you have one? Or do you just say whatever pops into your head? How do you act to deliberately impact people in a positive, in a constructive, in a healthy way? Let's look at self-esteem. Backing up for a minute, do you nurture or undermine your own self-esteem? How does your self-talk reflect your own sense of self-worth? They say that our confidence is nothing more than our reputation in our own mind. How do you see yourself? How do you hold yourself in good regard? Being an emotional builder starts with how we choose to treat ourselves. I addressed this from a different, fuller perspective in an earlier video, Rewriting Your Future in the Time of COVID. But for now, how we treat ourselves can be traced back to how we were treated by our caregivers, our teachers, our parents, our scout leaders, people who were given authority to care for us and help guide us. Kids are very vulnerable to grown-up hubris. So, do you treat yourself as a friend or an ally? Or if I listened long enough to your internal dialogue, would I think that you don't like yourself very much at all? Do you give yourself grace at moments when you screw up? Are you sympathetic to you when you do something thoughtless or insensitive? Do you give yourself room to grow, encouragement to get back up, to carry on? Do you pump yourself up or push yourself down? I don't mean that you avoid taking responsibility for how you impact others. I simply mean that you avoid beating yourself up for being human. The ability to forgive starts with learning to forgive yourself for being imperfect. You aren't perfect, are you? Then why do you get so defensive when somebody points out a flaw or an imperfection? Being vulnerable in this world doesn't mean that you're flawless. Rather, it means that on balance, you contribute more to your relationships than you take away. What you bring is worth your baggage. And you have the ability to affect that equation and to make it work for you. What about honoring and cherishing your significant other? I say significant other as an inclusive term. I don't just mean your spouse, but any adult with whom you're trying to build a long-term constructive relationship. Whether you're dating or committed to each other in a significant way, there is a power in that dynamic with which you can lift up or tear down the other person. How do you use that power? As a psychologist, I believe that this dynamic begins when you say, I love you to another person, or whether you've said it before, but not so much anymore. There's a trust and a vulnerability that comes with entering an intimate relationship. How do you treat that person? What does that treatment say about you as a human being? It's about them. When we date, when we fall in love, we have a tendency to idealize the other person. We see their blessings, we see their gifts, their graces. We fantasize about how good it would be if they were in our lives. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We listen to understand what they think and feel, and we support their interpretation of their life and their circumstances. And lo and behold, the other person falls in love with that. They say, Mom, I've met the kind of person I could really spend the rest of my life with. And they seal the deal in the relationship. Over a period of time, once the novelty is worn off, the human brain begins to look for what's wrong. What isn't happening? Well, her elbows are too wrinkled. She doesn't make spaghetti like my mother. Her feet are too big. We start finding faults. Failing to appreciate those gifts and graces that attracted us in the first place, we take them for granted, and we focus on what isn't ideal for us, what we want to have be different. And the result is the relationship begins to erode. It becomes weaker. It becomes less sustaining and more of a burden. Do you treat your partner with respect? Are you careful with their dignity? Do you treat your partner as if he or she is important to you? That how they feel or what they think matters to you? Very simply, the quality of your relationship can be directly tied to your ability to communicate that you both honor and cherish the other person. It's a deliberate choice, but one that requires you to be mindful. Mindful of your impact, mindful of your intention. There's an old country western song, and I'll paraphrase the title. It says, how can I kiss the lips at night that have been chewing my butt all day? We can get abused anywhere. It's much rarer to have a safe place where we can be nurtured, supported, and accepted for who we are. That's what makes it valuable. That's what makes it home. When we talk about parenting, it's the ultimate responsibility of a parent to teach, to lead, and to guide their children. That takes patience, love, maturity on your part. It takes no special skill or insight to simply criticize or judge, especially when the other person is a child. It's the duty of every parent to validate that child's sense of self, to see the value in themselves. You can separate here self from behavior. I love who you are. I don't like what you're doing right now. You're a good person doing dumb stuff. But fundamentally, that message is, I care about you and I value you even if you're not perfectly domesticated, perfectly trained and conditioned. I'm always amazed at the parents who expect emotional maturity well beyond the child's years. In fact, the parent doesn't have the emotional maturity that they're expecting from their children. It means being self-aware. It means being mindful. It's incumbent on you to launch competent, confident human beings into the world. Just telling someone where they're wrong, inadequate, or inexperienced adds nothing to their capabilities. Those tactics teach nothing, except perhaps to fear you and to distrust themselves. A judgmental posture is a reactive one. You react to what the child does, and guess what? The child doesn't lead with good judgment. The parent's role is to anticipate the child's needs, to proactively lead and influence the child to achieve success. Use your experience, your knowledge, and good sense to forge a relationship with the child where she or he can see you as an ally, as a teacher, as someone who's committed to helping them learn to navigate and to do their best, to be their best selves. Treat your spouse in a way where he or she feels appreciated for what they do well, cared about, recognized for the efforts they make, the effort and energy they put into the relationship, not expecting them to be perfect. Because you know what? You're not perfect either. And being married really carries the responsibility that at least some of the time you act lovable, not just selfish, self-absorbed, and viewing everything from your own perspective. Be a builder. Help your friends, help your teachers, help your parents, help your children, help your spouse. Add to this world. Add to the competency and the confidence and the healthy choices that people can make in this world. Support their best selves, and you will live in a better world. Thanks for your attention. It's good talking to you.